All right. So, good morning. And our topic for today is all about the skeletal system. So, now the objectives of our discussion for today is to discuss about the skeletal divisions, to define bone, cartilage, and the skeletal system. Also, list and describe the functions of the skeletal system and the classification of bones according to shape. So now, let's begin. What is the skeletal system? The human skeletal system consists of all the bones, cartilage, tendons, and ligaments in the body. Altogether, the body makes up about 20% of the person's body weight. An adult skeleton contains 206 bones. Children's skeleton actually contain more bone because some of them, including those of the skull, fuse together as they grow up. There are some differences of the male and the female skeleton. The male skeleton is usually longer and has a high bone mass, while the female skeleton, on the other hand, has a broader pelvis to accommodate for pregnancy and childbirth. And also, regardless of age or sex, skeletal system can be broken down into two parts. And now, we're gonna discuss on the skeletal divisions. So when we talk about the actual skeleton, it is about the center of the body. So um, the actual skeleton consists of the bones of the skull, ossicles of the middle ear, higher bone, vertebrae column, and rib cage. The actual skeleton consists of 80 bones, 80 in total. This is formed by the vertebral column, which has 32 to 34 bones. The number of the vertebrae differs from human to human, as the lower two parts of the sacral and the sacral and the coccygeal bone may vary in length. 12 pairs of rib cage, 12 pairs of rib cage, and the sternum, and of course the skull. 22 bones and 7 associated bones. Next, we have the appendicular skeleton. So, the human appendicular skeleton is composed of the bones of the upper limbs and the lower limbs. The pectoral girdle and the pelvic girdle. The pectoral girdle acts as the point of attachment of the upper limbs of the body. And the upper limb consists of the arm, the forearm, and the wrists, and of course, the hand. The pelvic girdle is responsible for bearing the weight of the body and responsible also for locomotion. It is also responsible for attaching the lower limbs of the body. The lower limbs, including the thighs, legs, and feet, support the entire weight of the body, and it absorbs the resulting forces from locomotion. Now, let's have the definition of terms. What is a bone? So, a bone is a rigid organ that consists part of the vertebrae called skeleton in animals. Bones protects the various organs of the body. It also produces red and white blood cells, store minerals, provide structure and support for the body, and enable mobility. Next, we have the cartilage. So, cartilage is a resilient and smooth elastic tissue and a rubber-like padding that covers and protects the ends of the long bones as the joints and nerves at the joints and nerves, and is a structural component of the rib cage, the ear, and the nose, and bronchial tubes, in vertebral discs, and many other body components. One of the major functions of the cartilage is to prevent friction of two bones. Next, the skeletal system. So, the skeletal system is the body system composed of bones and cartilage from cartilage, and it performs the following critical functions for the human body. The human skeleton is the internal framework of the human body. It is composed of 270 bones at birth, and this total decreases to around 206 bones by adulthood after some bones get fused together, mainly in the skull. And the bone mass in the skeleton reaches maximum density of around at age 21. So these are the functions. It supports the body. Number two, it facilitates move. Number three, protects internal organs. Number four, produce blood cells. And number five, to store and release minerals and fats. So support, movement, and protection of internal organs and protection is one of the major function of our skeletal system. And the most apparent function of the skeletal system are the gross functions, those visible by observation. Simply by looking at the person, you can see how the bones support, facilitate movement, and protect the human body. Now, bones also here facilitate movement by serving as points of attachment for your muscle, while some bones only serve as support for the muscle. Others also transmit the forces produces when the muscle contracts. From a mechanical point of view, bones acts as lever, and joints serves as fulcrum. Unless muscle spans joints and contract, bone is not going to move. What else? Bones also protect internal organs from injury by covering or surrounding them. For example, your ribs. They protect your lungs and heart. The bones of the vertebral column. The spine protects the spinal cord, and the bones of the cranium or the skull protects the brain. Now, minerals storage, energy storage, and hematopoiesis on a metabolic level, bone tissue performs several critical functions. Uh, for one of the bone matrix acts as a reservoir for a number of minerals important to the functioning of the body, especially the calcium and the phosphorus. Now, these minerals incorporated into the bone tissue can be released back into the bloodstream to maintain levels needed to support physiologic processes. Bone also serve as a site for fat storage and blood cell production. Uh, After connective tissue that fills the inferior of most bones is referred to as the bone marrow. Next, the classification of bones according to shape. So let's discuss each. We have the long bone. Good example is the humerus of arm. This one. When we talk about long bones, these are typically longer than they are wide. As a rule, they have a shaft with heads up at both ends. This and are more mostly compact bones. Next, we have the short bone. The short bone, good example, the carpal of the wrist is located right here, and it looks like this. Generally, cube-shaped and mostly contains spongy bone or sigmoid bones, which forms within tendons. These are special types of short bones. Next, we have the flat bones. Good example is the sternum located on the ribs. Um, the the flat bones are thin, flattened, and usually curved. They have two thin layers of compact bones, sandwiching a layer of spongy line between them. Ne- uh, Next, we have the irregular bone. The irregular bone. Good example is the vertebra located on the spinal column. Bones do not fit one of the preceding categories. Now, we're going to discuss about the type of osseous or bone tissue. Now, compact bone is a dense and looks smooth and homogeneous, while spongy bone composed of long, needle-like, spore-like pieces of bones and lots of open spaces. So there you go. That is the end of our discussion, and I hope you learned something. And thank you for listening. Have a nice day.